So today we're going to be talking a little bit about SAMR. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about why I decided to present on SAMR. Feel free to write anything in the chat. I have the chat up here on my other screen, so I'll be monitoring that as you're going. And then I'm also going to give you the path to the presentation. I'm going to share this path link. When you open it up, there we go. Using my brain. When you open it up, you'll get a little pop-up that says follow the path. So when you click on follow the path, it'll bring you in and you'll have edit access, but you don't need to actually write anything on this one until I tell you to. You can just use this bottom navigation at the bottom and you can kind of follow along. We're going to start with just a quick review of what is SAMR, and then we're going to spend most of the time looking through different ways that you can use Lucid for each of the different levels of the SAMR model. Okay, and feel free if you can reuse this presentation. All you would need to do is hit the 3 lines and duplicate, and then you'll get your own copy of the presentation. You can change it, customize it, and then you could reuse this with teachers in your district as well if you would like. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the path, and then just make sure to click that blue pop-up button when it says follow the path. And I'll notice when you guys are in, I'll start seeing icons popping up in the upper right-hand corner. Perfect. Successful logins. We always love when we have success. All right, so we're going to start with a quick just review, reminding ourselves what is SAMR. So SAMR is a model, model of implementing technology in the classroom, and the different levels of how technology is benefiting that activity. So a big thing we want to focus on when we're implementing technology, we don't want to just be implementing technology for the sake of implementing technology. Like, we want to have some sort of functional benefit when we are adding technology in the classroom. The reason that I am focusing on SAMR is because in my district, we were focused on the SAMR model, and we were giving several PDs related to, how can you make sure that you're hitting each of the different levels for SAMR? And so I wanted to kind of bring that into the lens of Lucid. How can I use Lucid to meet each of those different levels? So just as we know, the S is substitution. That is when technology acts as a direct substitute with no functional improvement. Augmentation is when technology acts as a direct substitute, but there is a functional improvement. Modification, technology allows for significant task redesign. And then finally, at the top, we have redefinition. Technology allows for the creation of new tasks that were previously inconceivable. So we're transforming, redefining that activity. One thing to think about is, a lot of people, when I was presenting this to teachers, they're like, oh my goodness, I need to be on redefinition all the time. And that's not the point of the SAMR model. The point of it is to know the different levels and to be trying to make sure that you're hitting all of those different levels when you're implementing technology, and to make sure that there's a purpose behind implementing the technology. I'm not just using the laptop because I want to make sure we're using technology. I want to be using the technology to give a functional benefit for my students. Okay, so you can use your navigation pane at the bottom of the screen. I'm sure you've seen a ton of different ways. For me, I'm a visual person, so I love when they make a comparison in a visual way. So this is the SAMR model broken down for us, related to, different ways. Our problem is, how can I see what's going on in the ocean? So our substitute is the difference between standing on land is we have a boat where we're still looking down on the water. We still can't see what's under it. We're just peering down through the water. So it's a substitute way of looking into the water. Then we have a snorkel for augmentation. This way, we are able to peek underneath the water So it's a substitute. We're still looking under the water. We have to stay at the top of the water, but I have a functional improvement now because I am underneath the water, so I can see further down. Then modification, we have our Scuba Gear. This has a significant redefine because we're no longer tethered to the top of the water. We can now dive down to lower depths and we can really interact and be down inside of the water with the other creatures. And then our redefinition is that technology allows for the creation of new tasks previously inconceivable. So this one, they created new technology, obviously, the submarine, that allows us to go even further down than our human bodies allow, which would be inconceivable before them. So this is an example of the SAMR model when looking at the problem and why we implemented technology to see what was under the water. What we're going to do is, I'm sure that you guys have all seen different ways, different visuals to explain the SAMR model, or you've come up with your own. So here you can see, this was me. I was, all right, when we introduced the SAMR model, how can we make sure that teachers, are getting different ways to understand this? So I came up with my, my own image where we were thinking about substitution. So in my main task that I usually do is writing on a piece of paper, and a piece of technology that acted as a substitution for that was a typewriter. When they first invented the typewriter, instead of using a pencil or pen, I was now typing it up. So for those of us with terrible handwriting, now that doesn't matter. However, that was just a substitute. I'm still just writing information onto a piece of paper. Then when I thought of an augmentation to this, I thought of, Word. When Word came out, it actually replaced the pen and pencil or paper and typewriter, and it improved functionality because it had spell check, different fonts, page formatting. You can delete easily, so you don't have to start all over. So we were getting some functional improvement. When we came to modification, I thought of Google Docs. So when Google Docs came out for me, this one I kind of think of like when you're thinking of modification redefinition, I kind of think of this one as like in between, but I am keeping it in modification for this one. The in between reason is because this was the first time when you were able to collaborate with others in the same document at the same time. And so for me, that was really earth-shattering, and I never even could conceive of that before Google Docs came up. But then for my redefinition example, I came up with a blog post and incorporating the internet in order to reach a larger audience and redefine writing paper just for myself. That would either have to print out and share to everybody, or now I can write a blog post, hit send, and it's instantly sent out to the world and other people to view. So it really redefined that task of writing on a piece of paper. So now I'm going to challenge you guys. We'll see how it goes. You can Google search an image of somebody else who's done this for you, so you can get some different ideas, or you can come up with your own. The way we're going to do this is, you'll notice on our toolbar on the left-hand side, I have breakout boards. If you do not see the plus breakout boards on this board, you can come down to the 3 dots and just make sure that you've pinned all of the features, or you can just access breakout boards here without needing to pin. You'll notice that the first one is a template. I'm going to go into the template and you don't have to go in. I'm just going to show you what to do. When you join this breakout board, I've created a template for you. And what you're going to do is you can add a picture. So this is just a picture filler. The way you can add a picture is you can delete this one and then use the image search on the left to search images related to what you wanted. So for example, this is where I searched for the typewriter. Oop, my E. And then you can just click and drag those images, resize them, and you can add them to your document. And then you can just explain, why this would be in this substitution area, or you could put a title for it. What you're going to do is, I'm going to go ahead and delete this typewriter. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. You're going to open up your breakboard panel, And then you can click the 3 dots and you can duplicate that activity. If you find one on Google, you can feel free to just kind of put that image in your area for you. So go ahead and 3 dots, duplicate, and go ahead and I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to go ahead and just fill that in. And then I'll pull those onto the main board so we can just kind of see some other ways that people are using Lucid, explaining and connecting with what is the SAMR model. So I'm going to go ahead and start our timer for a quick 5 minutes. Oh, that's 5 seconds. So that's really fast. There you go. And then if you haven't gotten the main presentation link, I'll go ahead and put that in the chat for you. And again, no worries if you aren't feeling creative, feel free to Google it and add a Google representation that somebody else has created for explaining the SAMR model. As you can see, when people are in their breakout boards, their icon will pop into the board and I can hover over it so I can see who is working in which of my breakout boards. And then I could join that board if I wanted to be monitoring what that student was working on during that independent activity. And if you aren't able to access your breakout boards, just make sure to log in with your district account, and then you'll have access to go into and view your breakout boards. And then just let me know in the chat when you are done. Perfect. So don't worry if you're not done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and pull out from the breakout board our students' work, and we can go ahead and look at it. And we have, I believe this is Michael's. Thank you for participating, Michael. Love it. Perfect. And if you don't mind, Michael, I'm going to go ahead and put you off. I'm going to give you permission so you can talk about it. If I can find, here we are, participants allowed to talk. Okay, perfect. So you should be able to come off mute and chat about your example.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And thank you for coming off the spot and talking about your example.
Okay, I did it quick, so I don't know how good it is, but
And I love it.
so the first thing that came to me was like communication. So expressing, I guess, how you feel. And so we had the old school way, you know, like using hand gestures, physically talking to somebody close by, is the substitution. And then augmentation is we were able to communicate still, but further distances. It just wasn't, the feeling's not there, but the tech is there where, you know, we can now talk to somebody and let them know in a further place what we need them to know. Modification, you can still communicate with the people on a landline, and now you can express your feelings, so you can get feelings across, which we couldn't do before on far distances. And then today with cell phones, you can literally show and interact with people. So you're communicating, but you're also interacting with them over large distances, getting stuff done.
I absolutely love it. I'm going to give you a heart. So everybody else, come on up and you can give hearts to Michael to show your love. And I love your I love Lucy, because it's so true, like, you know, using gestures and images in different ways to get your ideas across. Thank you so much for sharing, Michael. That was awesome. All right, and so now we're going to go ahead to our next part in the path. So if you're in SAMR in the classroom, these are some different, now taking it out of just the images, making connections. What does SAMR look like in the classroom? So in the classroom, I came up with 4 examples. For substitution, I have a regular activity is students just writing an essay with paper and pencil. And then the substitution is we move to a word processor. So now students are writing their work in a word processor, but there's no functional change. They're still just writing it, but they're using a word processor to do it. Then their augmentation, students are now writing essays in their Google Docs. And now the functional change is it allows teachers to pop into their work, provide feedback or suggestions in real time as the students are working on it. So the teacher doesn't have to have all the students turn in their work, provide feedback, and then pass those back. While the students are working, the teacher can also be providing that feedback. Modification, I thought of students adding multimedia in their writing to enhance their essays. So thinking about infographics now, where instead of just writing their essay, they're adding images, they're dropping in videos, they're putting in a graphic. So they're enhancing and redesigning that activity with those multimedia improvements. And then for redefinition, coming back to my blog, students are writing daily reflections about their day on a class blog post, which is now published online. Students can instantly view it, and the students can be collaborating on those daily reflections. So we're redefining it, since students can now be collaborating and using the internet to give parents instant access. And then kind of like we talk about this being a continuum, a lot of things, like I think this one could almost be in redefinition, because adding videos, images, graphics wasn't even possible before. And same thing, you know, with redefinition, maybe it's more in modification, since they're still just writing. So that's what I usually would tell my teachers, is don't get stuck on it having to be one or the other. A lot of times it could be in between or a little bit of both. And it's not a bad thing if you're only doing augmentation and not as much redefinition. The whole point is to be incorporating a lot. So now for this activity, I would like you on the left-hand side to click and drag out a sticky note. If you click on the sticky notes, you can choose the color of your choice. And I would like you to add a substitution activity, augmentation, modification, redefinition. They don't have to be all the same. If you just want to add one or two, you could to different areas. And if you're needing some help, I have a link where this opens up an article which gives specific examples of ways to substitute, ways for augmentation. So you can also steal some ideas off of that article as well. And for this one, I'm going to go ahead and give everybody about 2 minutes to go ahead and add their different examples from the classroom for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. Perfect. Thank you for collaborating on the board. And I love how quickly you pop those out since I know we are on the spot here. And I love how you can see there's so many different ways that you can do it too. You can do it in writing, you can do it in math. And a lot of times the reason I like to continuously do these activities is because it is kind of hard to think of, especially when you get to redefinition and modification, to really like push yourself to think of different ways that you can take a normal, classroom activity that you've been doing and then push yourself to think of different modifications and redefinitions. Ooh, perfect. I love this. Build a product that requires calculation. That is fantastic. Math is not my strong suit, so I'm glad you put some math up there. I'm definitely an ELA girl. Okay, so now how does this look in Lucid? So that was a quick, we're just really refreshing our memory of the different levels of the SAMR model. So now let's take a look at how you can use Lucid to convert some of your lessons using the SAMR model. So this first one, we're starting my example. I'm using the trusty worksheet. We've all used a worksheet. We all still use worksheets, and worksheets are still, very applicable in the classroom. So here's my standard, just paper worksheet. I pass it out to the students and they complete it. My example for substitution using Lucid is I substituted the paper copy worksheet that they are always working on and made it digital. So what this does is it improves accessibility for all students at school and at home, but there's still no functional, they still complete it in the exact same way. But it reduces teachers' time spent grading, and it removes restrictions of that 8 by 10 sized piece of paper. but functionally it is still the same activity. Now, why would you want to use Lucid? There are lots of ways that you can convert digital worksheets. There's tiered locking, which is my favorite. I'm going to show you that in a second. It integrates with Google Classroom, Canvas, and Schoology, so you can push it out. And then it's just easy to add PDFs, text boxes, shapes. It's just very easy to create. So if you click the link above substitution, this will make a copy of the example for you. And in this example, this is a quick how-to video that you can watch later if you want to be reminded of how to create these. So I clicked and dragged the PDF of my worksheet onto my canvas, and I went through and I added different text boxes. The way you do this is you just click and drag out your text box, form it, resize it. And then the most important part is that lock. So once you have all your text boxes added to the board, then I usually just click and drag to highlight my worksheet, all of my text boxes, and then I lock by size, position, style, but not content. So now the students can double click in here, but you'll see my toolbars grayed out, so they can add the content. So the sheep ran into the pen is the effect. The sheep ran into the pen, and then they can double click in the cause. And then the effect was the cause was the dog was barking. So here you can see the student is still completing this activity the same way they were paper pencil, but now they're doing it digitally, which comes with a couple benefits that we mentioned before. Really quick, really easy to set up substitution for that paper copy. And again, if you need a reminder of how you would set up these digital worksheets, this video will walk you through that. So then moving through to the next one is augmentation. So now, how can I complete a similar activity, but with some functional enhancements? So for this one, I used the same worksheet, but I augmented it with drag and drop features, which allowed me to scaffold this activity for students. So for this one, it also allowed me to increase that engagement and to reduce the time it took them. Same instructional activity, but now they don't have to type it out, so faster time. And students who might have a barrier of being able to type, they can now just click and drag the answers onto the board. So this is giving me some functional enhancements with those different scaffolding and differentiation ways to complete this activity. So if you click on the link above augmentation, you can see that for this one, I still just drug the PDF of the worksheet onto my canvas in Lucid chart. And for this one, I'll probably lock it. So I didn't lock it beforehand, which was rookie mistake. So I'm going to click the lock and lock this one completely because they're not doing anything. It's just a background for them to click and drag. And then for this one, I pulled out shapes. I just used the shape. I pulled it out, resized it, and then I added that scaffold by writing a cause and effect, but I mixed them up. So then they need to click and drag out what it is. You'll also notice these are different colors to help them with focusing. So I know that the blues go together. So you can also just use that paint can to change your colors. And then all you have to do is double click and you can write inside of your boxes. Now I didn't lock these because I want them to be able to move it. However, you could click and lock these by content. So it's kind of the opposite. I don't want them to change the content, but I do want them to be able to move them around. So you could highlight all of these and use the lock to lock content so they don't change what's inside of the box. And then the students now just click and drag the sheeps, oh dear. The sheep ran into the pen and the cause is the sheepdog was barking. Then they can move on to the next one. So you can see how now this is a faster way to get that same educational impact of that activity, and also providing that scaffold for students who might have difficulty with typing or their reading, different things like that. So this has a couple different scaffolding improvements. Now I saw we just had somebody pop in, so I'm going to go ahead and share this path link again. So if you just popped in, we are in this presentation. Feel free to follow along. We are now moving on to slide 9, which is modification. So we started with that cause and effect worksheet. We looked at how we can substitute with Lucid, how we can augment with Lucid, and now how can we modify. So for this one, we're modifying with graphic organizers. So instead of just doing that typical graphic organizer, I'm now giving the students a way to construct their own scenarios where they could be bringing in their own scenarios and figuring out cause and effect. You can also have the students take what they're reading and pull cause and effect into this cause and effect graphic organizer. So it helps students visualize abstract things. It helps them break down complex concepts, and it reduces, again, that time to completion, where it's already done in a template for them to complete. And the benefits of Lucid are you have hundreds of graphic organizer templates, again, locking features, and then that endless expanding canvas. So you're not stuck in that worksheet. You can continue adding more activities to that board. So if you click the link above modification, this will open up your own copy. So feel free to click and drag, fill it out so you can practice. So for this one, we took that standard graphic organizer, that standard worksheet on cause and effect. And now the teacher, there are two ways the teacher could fill in the scenarios, and the students are pulling out the cause and effect in the graphic organizer. The students could be coming up with their own scenarios, and then they could be trading that back and forth with other students. And then I make the scenarios and I make the cause and effects, or I make the scenarios and I give it to a partner or to the class, and they're pulling out the different cause and effects. So we're modifying and we're not redefining it, but again, it could be, bridging that gap where the students are coming up with their own scenarios and they're seeing it visually in that graphic organizer, which for our students, we know that graphic organizers really help to organize understanding for students. After modification, and for the graphic organizers, I forgot to show, to find these different graphic organizers or to create them. To create this one, I clicked on the plus sign, and you can pull out our swim lanes. I love the different swim lanes. You have horizontal or vertical. And then they just wrote in here scenario, and then cause, and then effect. And then all the teacher did was pull out, it helps if you know how to spell, which I do not. They pulled out the shapes, and then here was the scenario box for the students. You can color it using your toolbar. And then I love how you can connect these really quickly using those red dots. And you have now this pop-up of your shortcuts. So I'm going to add this one, I'm going to resize it. Or you could start with this copy and pasting. Oops, sorry, didn't copy right. Command C to copy, Command V to paste, and you can move your box, and then you could use the red afterwards to connect them however you want. So now, and then a lot of times I'll hold Command and click all of these, and then you can either Command C and Command V to copy, or, love this, if you hold down Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC, when all of these are highlighted, I can just pull out and it automatically duplicates. So anytime something's highlighted and you hold Option or Alt and drag out, it automatically duplicates. So really quick way for this teacher to set it up by scratch, or you could search in Lucid. The template library, when you're in your Lucid dashboard and you go to templates, you could search for that cause and effect activity, and it will actually give you cause and effect templates that you can use. And every time I try and do activities here, it always goes slow for me. So here is a colorful cause and effect example. Here is a 2-frame cause and effect. So you can see I have several different options. And I found these quickly by going down to the education tab at the bottom of my templates. Or again, you could use that search feature as well. Let's see if it. Perfect. So here are some of those cause and effects in Lucid chart. So those are some ways that you could find the different graphic organizers to modify your different worksheets that you might have done in the past. So now I'm moving on using my navigation pane at the bottom. If you lost your navigation pane, you can always click on the frames icon on the left, and you could go back into the path, or you could click the table of contents and just head down to number 9. Ooh, it looks like my number 6 was down here, but that's okay. So we're actually heading to number 10 though for redefinition. So for our redefinition, you'll notice here that that original worksheet, we're going to redefine it with an authentic learning opportunity connecting to the real world. So in this activity, the students are connecting to real world problems and cause and effects. They're collaborating with others in a digital space. So it doesn't matter if they're in the classroom together or if we have students who couldn't come that day and they're working at home, they can still be collaborating on the document. And it's also incorporating research, organization, and the analysis of information. So really taking that cause and effect worksheet and redefining how that looks and is completed by these students. Some benefits, it's easy collaboration. I love how you can embed those multimedia pieces, which you wouldn't be able to in, just a regular piece of paper. So I can embed videos, I can embed websites, I can embed images, and then it's just easy for the students to create and fix. So if you click the link above redefinition, that will bring you into your own copy of one that you could play with for redefinition. In the redefinition activity, you'll see that it's set up as a real world problem, and the students are identifying through their own research, or the teacher could have several pre-populated real world problems for the students to come up with, or they could do historically what were problems that, throughout history, what the problem was World War II, what were some causes of World War II, what were some causes of those causes. And then if it's historical, you could actually write those solutions. Or if it's a real world problem happening right now, the students could do research and brainstorm and hypothesize possible solutions for each of those different problems. So you can see here, this is one where you could give them an already pre-populated document where they could come in and they could be double clicking to change the content and be coming up with their own causes. Or you can have the students, you have instructions, and the students are starting from a blank canvas and they're mapping out that cause and effect in their own way. So you can decide, do you want to give them free rein and have some more choice? Or you could also give them this example, but tell them, this is just an example that you could use to pull from, but you could also, share your cause and effect information in your own way as well. Just make sure to follow and list all of the steps in the instructions. So there's a couple different ways that you could share that out to redefine that activity for students as well. Then our final slide is our SAMR toolkit that I put together. So in here, you'll notice that I have several different toolkits or videos talking about different activities for Lucid that teachers can use Lucid to help support their use of the SAMR model. So for example, we talked about digital worksheets. So this is that quick video on how they can do substitution with digital worksheets. And then digital bulletin boards. This is another video about digital bulletin boards. We do this a lot in the classroom where we pose questions for students. Students might come up with sticky notes, or they might be they might verbalize it, and then the teacher writes it for the students on chart paper. And so this is functionally the same activity, but now all of the students are adding directly to that bulletin board collaboratively. So again, this is sometimes we're like, oh, I kind of feel like it's substitution, but also augmentation because it is functional improvement. So it's that continuum. It's not, one or the other. Some augmentation ideas I came up with were, this is an interactive engagement toolkit, which you can see in here. It has several different ways to get students actively engaged. So for example, we have, instead of just doing a multiple choice test, we have different ways that you could have multi-select problems. You could do drag and drop activities. You could do hotspots, have them highlight a map. You could graph them, match tables. So different ways, instead of just doing your typical multiple choice tests or fill in the blank, these are different ways that you could enhance those same type of problems. I really love this toolkit. It's new, and it has a bunch of different ways. And inside of these, you see an example. So this is different examples of how you could create drag and drop activities. And then there's also a video that walks you through step by step how you could recreate these if you wanted to recreate them. And then of course, we also have some templates. And then here's that how-to video at the bottom again. So this is that drag and drop template. So the teacher could also open this up, and then they already have a template, and all they need to do is they can come in and edit the text, and then they have a drag and drop activity that they could complete for the students. So just something to poke around in for same type of activity, but increasing that engagement and that functionality using different types of activities. And again, here I am again, it might go towards more augmentation, modification, kind of bridging that gap. This one talks about facilitating group work using breakout boards. So students you can have, as the teacher, the students are all still working on the same type of group work activity, except now you can pop in and see all of the work the students are working in at one place. And I'm elementary, so I love our new digital manipulatives, which I think fit into augmentation because they're still digital manipulatives. They're just like the regular manipulatives that the students would be using, but now they're using it digitally, which, improves time. It's a lot faster for them to come out. All the students have them. And so now that I'm talking about it, it might be more, I'm going to drag this over. Maybe this one's more substitution because it's no functional change. We're doing the same activity, but it is kind of like bridging that gap. As you can see, that's why it's a continuum. So digital manipulatives for that augmentation substitution. And then for modification, I have some resources for scaffolding, instruction with graphic organizers, redefining your assessment by having students complete infographics or flyers to share what they have learned. And then of course, that modification of how you embed multimedia using the Loom integration in Spark or copying and pasting YouTube videos directly onto the board, using the image search. So just using multimedia to modify that activity for students. And then finally, a couple resources for that redefinition. So redefine your classroom discussions by including a collaborative space for students to be adding their work to the board. I'm not sure if you were here for Stacy's webinar where she talked about, giving everybody equitable and equal access to participate in the way that they feel comfortable with. So the discussions toolkit gives you a couple ways that you could structure that for students where they can be collaborating and facilitating in that discussion if they're not yet comfortable to do it verbally. And then again, facilitating class collaboration. Anytime you're adding that collaboration piece, you're really pushing the boundaries and redefining that activity. And as well as strengthening relationships, we're building capacity in our students to collaborate and engage with each other through those different collaboration activities. So this is just a kind of a toolkit that you can kind of look through, peruse at your own, in your own time, some of the different resources for each of the levels of the SAMR model. So that is all I had. I'm going to drop the path one more time. Feel free if you want to, like I said, reuse this if you're focusing on the SAMR model and you wanted to use this presentation for your teachers. you can just use the 3 lines and you can duplicate it. You'll get your own copies. You have some of the resources, but you can tweak it, add it, change things to be working with your teachers. So if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. I will also, we were recording this, so I hope we were recording it. Now I'm not seeing if we were recording. Hopefully we were recording it. I will send out the recording afterwards. And so just let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming today. Yes, perfect. And then Sandra, did you mean the, here, I'll pull you off, I'll allow you to talk. Did you mean the presentation or one of the toolkits? You should be able to get to all the other toolkits in the presentation. This is, I'm going to send a link straight to this. Oh, guess I'm not. So this is the path link. And then in the path, Sandra, oh, presentation, perfect. That should get you into the presentation, but let me know if it's not letting you in. Ooh, and it might be because you haven't logged in. Let me give you a different share feature. So link anyone with the link. And here, I'll give you, I believe, edit. So no login required for guests. So copy link. Let's see if this one works. And if that, I will also include a view only. One of these will work. But if you log in, it should give it to you. Can view, but can't share, edit, comment. Okay, perfect. So here's a view link. And I'm also just going to give you a published link. But I have a feeling it's probably because you're not logged in. It should let you in here though, but let's go ahead and publish this. So then this is a published link for the for the interwebs. So this should definitely allow you to have access to the presentation. And in the view only, you should still be able to use the 3 lines to duplicate. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sandra. Sorry about the difficulties getting in. You too, Sandra. Okay, if I don't have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the session. Thanks so much for coming.